Welcome to Melanin Table Talks, a podcast of Healthy Beginnings. Healthy Beginnings is a program of BRIC, a pre-cradle to career nonprofit focused on moving children and families towards upward economic mobility. Through our Southward Promise Neighborhood Initiative here in Newark, we are able to holistically support families from pregnancy onward with the help of over 30 different partners. Melanin Table Talk is a regular conversation with individuals from various backgrounds with the goal of furthering birth equity and reproductive justice. Before we dive into today's conversation, we encourage you to like, share, and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on the latest conversation. Now join us at the Melanin Table.
All right, welcome everyone to our first table talk. So today we're going to be discussing the importance of mental health with the Black population. So today we are here with Jasmine, Joanna, Nichelle, and myself, Madeline. So first, I have a question for you all.
Okay.
All right, our first question is, we're going to start by defining the perinatal mental health and exploring the significance on Black women. So what are some common mental health challenges experienced during pregnancy and the postpartum period, and how does that intersect with the experience of the Black perinatal woman?
I can kick us off as a Black perinatal woman. I have 3 kids, and I had mental health challenges with all of them, honestly. My first one, my background's in public health. I was working in behavioral health, public health. I knew what to expect. I knew what was going to happen. And still, when I was pregnant, I was like, what is going on? Why am I feeling like this? I talked to my OB. I said, hey, I think I've got some prenatal depression. Can you support me? Can you connect me? And they were like, you know what? I don't know anyone locally. If you find someone, let me know, and I'll refer them to my other patients. So again, a person with tons of resources working in this field. I knew all the folks in the landscape of where I was doing the work, and I couldn't get support. And then after I had the baby, still feeling very stressed. I have this strong memory of my parents driving away. They came to stay with us for a little bit. They were driving away. I was taking my baby to a doctor's appointment, and I just sat in the car and was crying, just crying. And I was like, I'm scared to drive. I had my little mirror, all of that, and I still didn't know what to do. I have a ton of social support. Again, in the field, my friends are social workers. I knew all the things to do, and I was still feeling those feelings, and I had tried to seek out help, and it was hard for me. So I know that what happened to me is not rare among Black women specifically, and we know it's harder often for us to access services, especially a mental health professional who looks like us, who understands what you've been through, all of that. It's hard.
So my experience was a little bit different than yours. I had a set of twins at first. Everything was perfect. I did not suffer from postpartum or anything, but my youngest, I had postpartum. But I was already in a slight depression to begin with, which I think culminated into developing into postpartum. And I didn't know what it was. And I didn't know who to speak to.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because, we have this stigma that's placed on us as if we have an S on our chest, and we're exactly. We're super women. So I had no idea where to go. I just ended up trying to work through it myself. Yeah. Now that I'm in this space and I'm doing this work, and I'm able to identify it in others, and I'm very fortunate that Madeline works very closely with me, so that as I'm seeing the indicators or noticing some of the signs. Along with that, I can also reach out to Madeline to get additional assistance. But with the moms that we work with, oftentimes we have to look at the social determinants that is leading them to the circumstances that they're in. And I can relate because at the time that I was in depression, I was going through some very hard struggles. Yeah. And so mine was nowhere near as deep as what we're seeing in the moms that we work with. So being able to catch them early and identify, the indicators sooner than waiting just for postpartum, plays a great deal. And of course, also watching for postpartum, looking for any signs that, comes around then. And I'm grateful to Madeline because she actually helped me to identify, because she prepared this sheet that I'm able to look at and answer questions and be able to get a better feel as to what moms may be going through. So I'm grateful to you for that. So thank you.
So for me, it was also a little different. So I had my first daughter, first and only. I have two other boys. At 21. So when the nurse was like, "Are you feeling some postpartum?" I was like, "And what am I supposed to feel?" So I think it's like getting comfortable talking about what it was, because I'm like, do I feel scared? Hell yeah. Am I nervous? Hell yeah. Am I sad? No. But what am I supposed to feel? So for me, my question, just because I'm always like that, I'm going to say, what am I supposed to feel? Right? Because I just feel tired and overwhelmed. I don't feel sad. So I think it's just talking about it, normalizing it, letting people know what you may feel. Because especially if you're a new mom and you don't know what you're supposed to feel, right? I mean, normal life, we feel happy, we feel sad. That's normal. But talk to me about what signs I should see. I think that is really helpful. And that was really helpful to me. And I think because I was so young at that time, they took the time to talk to me. But I could imagine if you are, a woman of a certain age, or, you're 20 in your later 20s, people just think you know what you're doing, right? And yes, can I pull up the definition of what depression means? Of course, but it's very different when you're going through something. So it's like really grateful, and it's so good that we're talking about this and we're making it be okay to not be okay, right?
Yes.
And then I also just want to add that like everyone's experience is different. Yeah. And like what you said, like what is it supposed to look like? A lot of people think that postpartum depression looks like I want to kill myself. Mm-hmm. I want to harm my children. Mm-hmm. But it's a wide range of symptoms. There's lots of things to look out for. And it's just not postpartum depression. There's anxiety, there's OCD, there's post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's a wide range of different mental health conditions that can come up during your pregnancy and postpartum, because it's not just after you have the baby, it's during pregnancy as well. And then like in my experience, so I have 2 kids and I'm a licensed social worker. So I know what the signs are. I know what to look out for. I know these things in my head. But even having the background and the knowledge that I do, I still went through my experiences after having my first, and then again with my second. Yes. Like I had, my baby was in the NICU for like almost 3 weeks, which took a huge toll on me, right? So that just, like having the right support system played a huge role in that.
Did you feel, Madeline, that you had access to support when your son was in the NICU?
So actually, the hospital where I delivered at, they didn't have any support there at all whatsoever. Oh, wow. There was no social worker in there. Like there was no one that you can even talk to. Wow. So I was sitting there thinking, like, where's the support here? Mm-hmm. And because I knew what I know, I told my husband, I said, look, this is how I'm feeling. But it took me a long time to get there. Mm-hmm. It took me a long time. Like I knew how I was feeling. And, we've all had moms, probably had our moments in the shower where we just let it all out, right? So like I got to like a point where I was like, no, like this cannot continue. So like I spoke to my husband. I'm like, listen, this is how I've been feeling. X, Y, and Z. I need help. And he was very supportive there. Yeah.
I mean, that is so incredible for you to be able to acknowledge that you needed help, right? And kudos to your husband, right, who was able to receive it. Because I don't think we talk about this. I never talked about how I'm supposed to feel. I don't believe that doctors also talks to your partner about signs to look out for. So I think the more that we can talk about this, normalize it with whoever's in your support, right? Whether it's your partner, your husband, your wife, whoever there is there for you, just to be able to talk about this so that you can have these conversations. Because when you're in it, it's hard to express what you're feeling. So, I mean, that's great that, you have the skills. But I think back to what Jasmine and Joanna were saying, if you don't have that knowledge, right, and it was still a struggle for you who are like seasoned, the expert, you have all this knowledge. I think that's why we're really doing these talks, right, to make sure that our sisters out there know that you're normal. What you're feeling is what we all felt. So I just appreciate you for just being so vulnerable and sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Just one other thing. And like when you think about, like you said, it's not just PPD, it's not just postpartum depression, because that's often what we're talking about when we're talking about mental health, maternal mental health challenges. I was so anxious. I feel like I had prenatal depression and postpartum anxiety. And that's why I was sitting in my car crying. I was scared to drive with the baby. I said, what if something happens? What am I going to do? My kids are in daycare because I'm a working woman. And we had those apps, right? Like you can see like the baby ate at this time. I'm like, what if I didn't drop my baby off? Like, what if the baby is in the car and something is happening? So sometimes the app wasn't up to date. My first daycare, they didn't have one yet. I would call and say, hey, just checking in to see like how it's going. And I was really checking to see if my baby was there because I was like losing my mind that something had happened. So we don't talk about postpartum anxiety a lot, and then how it doesn't necessarily go away, right? Like I'm on my third kid. It's been 7 years now. I still feel different than I felt before I started having children. And I'm sure I was anxious, right? But I didn't know what was going on. And now I'm very clear that's what is happening, but it was definitely exacerbated by having children.
Yeah.
And you can manage it, right? But you have to know what's happening. And you also have to make sure that your partner, your support system is not dismissing you. I vividly remember my husband, who I love very much, not the most patient person, is like, what do you, like, of course you wouldn't leave the kid in the car. Like, why are you getting so upset? Like, why? And I was like, I have to call. Like, I have to do it. It's the only thing that's going to make me stop thinking about this.
Yeah. Thanks. I would like to add, with the moms that we work with, that we like to love on and we care for, normalizing the conversation. Oftentimes this is not what they hear at home. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even though there are surveys that are out there, oftentimes you have to remember our community aren't always comfortable with filling out surveys because in their mind, they're thinking, I'm being judged on this. Yeah. They're responding to these surveys to answer correctly, not to answer truthfully. Yeah. Wow. And that causes a problem too, because that means that mom can actually be hiding how she's actually feeling. Right. So being able to have a one-on-one conversation, building these relationships, being able to communicate to our moms makes a huge difference. That's why I love the work that we do, because we are able to build those close relationships. We all think outside the box when it comes to the service that we want to provide to our moms. So that makes a huge difference. And them knowing, like you said, Nichelle, it's okay to be okay. Yeah. It's okay to be okay. Yeah.
And then I also want to add, like you spoke about, like the surveys, like that they do, like the postpartum depression screeners, all of the different screeners, right? I know a lot of moms don't even answer those questions honestly because they're so scared of being judged. Yeah. And to highlight, like Black women, we have to fear the welfare system. If I say that I'm having these thoughts, are they going to call DCP&P child welfare on me? Are they going to take my child away from me?
Or assume that I'm a bad mom. Yes. Just because I'm having a bad moment. Right. Just because I'm having a bad moment.
Right. Yeah. So the other question that I have for you ladies is, why is it essential to create safe spaces for Black perinatal women to openly discuss their mental health concerns and seek support?
Why it is very important to have that safe space is because oftentimes it was never created for us before. Yeah. Exactly. You may have walked into a space and been at a vulnerable state and willing to share, but it could have been someone's look, someone's demeanor. They're not representing you. They don't look like me. Yeah. Yeah. So oftentimes you're just like, no, I think I better bottle this one up. And so that's what makes the difference. When you see someone, we can walk in someplace and you will see someone that looks like you. It feels a little different. Like someone, someone who talks like you. Yeah. Someone who can relate to you. Someone who is willing to be vulnerable like you are. Because I know you ladies. Yeah. And we all have sat in a place where we wanted to make sure that they understood we're not above you, we're your equal. We put on our pants the same way you do. Right. We are so relatable to the same issues that you've gone through. And I remember in the past, Nichelle, you even spoke about growing up in the South Ward and you visited your old home. Yeah. So like we're from this community.
That's right.
You know, we actually live not far from
That's right.
the individuals that we work with. So we understand what's going on with you, why you feel the same way you do, why you may not feel comfortable talking,
That's
but
right.
being able to say or share
Similar experiences.
Similar experiences.
100%.
Similar
We're not above
experiences.
you, below you.
We're with you. We're with you. Sister, I
Yeah.
got you.
Exactly.
I got you. I'm my sister's
Exactly.
keeper. And them being able to then feel the moment to say, you know what, this is someone I can trust. Because even if you look at, it doesn't matter what age, but I'm just going to use our population of teen moms.
Yeah.
You know, we're grown women sitting up here,
Yes.
all of us professionals.
That's right.
But yet
Yeah.
these young ladies still feel comfortable
That's right.
enough to still share with us their most deepest, darkest secrets. Why is that possible? Because we know teens can hold on to some secrets,
Yes.
but yet they're still comfortable to share with us what they're going through. You know, to allow us to assist them in whatever realm that needs to be in.
Yeah.
So.
And then I just want to, so we know that 1 in 8 women would experience some type of postpartum mental health disorder. So we know that Black women are actually 3 to 4 times more likely to experience that than a white woman. On top of that, teens are double the amount. So they have it even worse. And it's hard for them to even want to reach out to get the help. So it's like you and I work with these teens, when we get that information, that took work. Like that doesn't happen overnight. They have to know that we're actually being genuine, that we actually care about them, and we're coming from a space of wanting to help them heal and process this journey. Yes.
And those numbers are so, like, they make this clear, like, why this is so important. And in addition to the 1 in 8, maternal mental health issues are the most common complication of pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum. Like, it is the most common complication. So this is an issue for all birthing people everywhere. And then you think about the additional barriers that Black women have to go through to acknowledge that something is happening. Like, again, I'm scared to fill out that form. Even me, like, I know I keep making this about me, but like, I'm a professional, I'm in this work, but it makes me nervous as a person. Like, someone could call child services on me too for just being vulnerable and saying, I actually do need help. Reaching out is a very vulnerable place to be. And our families who are over surveilled, services are in their faces, right? Like, it's scary to be like, hey, I actually am having a hard time caring for myself and my child right now, because instead of helping, sometimes we remove or we come in and say, we know better than you. We are here to support folks. And I just need to applaud Joanna and Madeline for the phenomenal, amazing, magical, life-sustaining, like super impactful work that you were doing with the moms here, especially the teen moms. Like, it is, I see them come in. I get to look over your shoulders at the data. I get to make sure our processes are happening. But it is magical. Like, the experiences that you're having are magical. And Joanna sometimes is the only person in a delivery room with some of our moms. You become that social support. Healthy Beginnings becomes the village. And we all deserve the village. Like, when we think about, I'm going to get on my soapbox about our ancestral practices, right? But we think about birth belongs to us. Like, these are Black women's practices. We should be in community together, catching those babies, rubbing each other's ankles, saying, you got this, mama. If you don't got it, that's okay. I'll hold that baby while you take a nap. I'll wash your dishes. I'll clean your floor. I'll feed you. I'll watch you. I will put food in your mouth while you're nursing that baby. Those are the things that are ours and they belong to us. And that's what Healthy Beginnings is trying to recreate for our moms here.
Yep, I love that.
Exactly.
We all need it. All deserve it.
Help me. So the last question that I have for you, and we kind of touched on it, is how do factors such as socioeconomic status, systemic racism, and cultural differences affect their ability to receive adequate care? And I want to put an emphasis on adequate.
So I'm not here to speak badly on our healthcare system at all. But what I do want to point out is that oftentimes we see, because I do attend those prenatal visits and I am in the hospital often, and you see where the treatment is definitely different. And if you don't mind, I would love to speak on your.
Sure.
Okay. So I was Madeline's doula, okay? And we were actually here We were here for a meeting.
Oh my God!
You remember that? We were here for a meeting. You remember that? Yes, on her second pregnancy.
Like, girl, why are you still here?
Yes.
Right.
Madeline was experiencing some very extreme pain, and she was still trying to manage, and still show up, for not only us, but her families, our families. And we ended up going to the hospital. So we went to one hospital, and we were just gravely mistreated from the door. I mean, we hadn't even made it to see a medical doctor or even a nurse, but from the door, we were gravely mistreated. We ended up leaving that hospital. Let me step back. Before we left, we sat there and we observed someone who is of non-color, greeted differently, treated differently. We left that hospital and we went to another hospital, okay? And we sat there hoping that we would see a doctor. Madeline was not treated. I remember asking, and I kept saying, she had a shortened cervix, okay? I remember saying to the nurse, so let me ask you, because they said all the beds are booked. But there was a lot of scheduled C-sections. They were having inductions, a lot of scheduled inductions, C-sections. Okay. So I asked one of the nurses, so what happens if she goes into labor right now? Would you be able to find a bed for her?
Yeah, what do you do?
And the nurse said, probably.
Probably.
Now,
Not
yes,
definitely.
no, probably. And it was just so dismissive.
Right.
Now, as we're traveling from one hospital to the other, Madeline happened to call New York. Madeline's initially from New York. Madeline made a call to New York, to the hospital there, okay? She told them what was going on, and we were on our way to another hospital. Now, mind you, at this point, we're already 4 hours in.
Yeah.
We were already 4 hours in, or probably headed towards 5.
Yes.
Wow.
The hospital in New York happened to call Madeline to tell Madeline if she was still able to, and this was during rush hour, which was another concern. If she was able to, to come, they had a bed for her. Madeline got over there, record time, considering that it was still rush hour, got over there, and she was serviced.
And seen right away.
And seen right away.
Right in the bed.
Yeah. They met her at the door.
As they should.
Yeah. And then what's bizarre is that the first 2 hospitals, like, we let them know I had a high-risk pregnancy with my second. So, and I was having contractions. And they saw me there having contractions. And remember when you went up to the nurse says, that's all she's experienced is contractions?
Yes.
So I was fortunate enough that I was able to go take the drive over to New York. But a lot of our families can't do that.
No, you're about to be on the subway.
Right. Right. So when we look at what the social determinants, economic status, of course we do realize that doesn't matter, because again, as we're sitting here, we're all professionals. Madeline presents as a professional individual. There was no reason for her to be treated that way. But then we also take a look at the fact that, yes, I will admit, hospitals are stressed. Nursing staffs are stressed. Okay, they're being pulled in all different directions. But we also have to keep the human in it, all right, and not walk away dismissive and just saying, like, I've seen this before.
Right, 100%.
And especially in certain communities, or judging, and because we do often see that as well. I come in with the teen mom. Yeah. The assumption is she was just being fresh. But you don't know that young lady's backstory.
That's right.
And Madeline and I have, as of the last year, our stories that we have received from a lot of our moms. This was not a pregnancy of choice, not because they were being fresh, but because they were violated.
Yes.
Okay, so we have to also, look at that. Judgment has to stay out of medical care. Amen. It has to be removed. And we have to remove our egos. And we have to look at each individual as being human, no matter what your race is, no matter what your zip code is, no matter how many people reside in your house, no matter if you've walked into a hospital by yourself.
That's right.
Okay? Yeah. You have to be looked at as a human. Your skin color, how much money you make, your insurance coverage.
Because that's critical.
Yes. Yeah. That should not make a difference into the care that you give. So getting back to, how the social determinants and all of that, make a difference. This is what we see. This is what we see. The difference, and what I love about Healthy Beginnings is that we're all game changers. And we're all sitting at tables,
That's right.
providing our voices to make sure that those changes are happening.
Yeah. Sweet.
Well said.
Does anyone else want to share anything about their experience during postpartum, during their pregnancy? Any challenges that's unique to you as a Black woman in the spirit of Black Maternal Health Week?
I mean, so I'm challenged. I've got a lot of challenges, but one that's relevant to thinking about perinatal mental health and what's going on. Again, I've shared a lot about having rough times mentally and emotionally after having babies. One experience I had, and I've had all different types of therapists. I know the importance of therapy. Again, it's like I am trained to work in systems around behavioral health and public health specifically, and it's still, when it's still very different. I had a therapist who I really liked. I really liked her. She was a white woman, and I remember I had just had my first baby. I was going to see her, and I loved her, and we were having a conversation about like, I mean, you know, your mommy issues. This comes up in therapy. It's like your mommy and daddy issues. So we're talking about my mom, right? And she's like, "Oh, I think that you were abused." And I was like, "Ma'am, like in Black communities, like, listen, I mean, we don't need to have." I'm not going to talk about corporal punishment, my thoughts on it right now, but like based off of what I told her about like getting like smacked on the butt, right? Like this is not an appropriate way to introduce this. So, and it's just like, even if this is what you feel, you have to lead me towards discovering that for myself instead of saying, full stop, you were abused. And I'm like, again, like, I'm like 2 weeks postpartum and I'm like over here trying to talk about like why I'm having such a hard time driving and like keeping my baby and myself alive. You know, it's like, it doesn't make sense. And I loved her, respect her. She was a great clinician. So when I think about if she had more understanding and experience with Black communities and Black women and culture, she would know, even if that's what you actually think, which valid. I have, again, strong feelings about corporal punishment. This is not a way that you introduce this to someone in this position. It's alienating. And again, because I am who I am and I have this like technical and academic knowledge, I said, you know, actually, I would recommend you not framing it like that to someone else. Like, I take this, I accept it, I respect you, I'm going to give you this feedback. And if I was someone else, I would have just completely disengaged and you never would have saw me again. And like, you're important for me to make sure that I'm working through my issues. So it's just really important to, like, you don't have to look exactly like me, right? Like, because again, we don't all have the same experiences and we share a melanin, right? But we don't have the same experiences. But we know in doing this work that we are seeing our people and for their individuality, but also understanding that culturally different things are going on. And if I don't understand that, I need to seek to understand and do some research that doesn't require me saying, tell me about like, tell me about like your hijab, Joanna, like tell me about your, like, what do you got on? You know, like, do you have on shoes? Like people do things like this, right? It's like, that's not appropriate. If you're a professional, you're a clinician, you're a healthcare provider, do your own research. I don't expect you to be an expert on me, because also what we get into is people are like, I know about Black people. So now I'm like, listen, let me talk to you. I see that you have high blood pressure. Maybe you should lay off the fried chicken. And people do say, like, you know, it's like in spirit of trying to connect, that is also inappropriate. I'm a vegetarian, okay? But you didn't know that, right? But like, these are the things that we need to be thinking about. It's not, our snap judgments have served us, like in the wild when we were trying to stay alive. I saw that lion. Am I being chased by a lion? I saw that lion and I said, do I run or do I hit the ground? Right. That kept me alive. I was like, what do I do? What do I do? I'm sweating. That's what I would have done. But that would have kept us alive, right? Those quick judgments kept us alive. That's our like reptilian brain. I'm not going to get into my neuroscience because I like that too, but that's our reptilian brain keeping us alive. So when you are a professional in a setting where you come in and you see someone, you make a quick judgment, especially in like an ER, an emergency situation where it's like life or death. I have to assess the situation. And we use all of the important knowledge that we have accumulated over our life course to make those judgments and make those quick choices, because they serve us, keep us alive, they help us make good choices. But when you're using only the data that you have seen previously and you've only been exposed to a certain type of person who looks like this or experience or background, then you think that you know about people. And we can't do that. We have to unravel our biases and what we think that we know about folks. We have to unravel that. And even the stats that we do know, the individual experiences that in a different way, even if we know, hey, you have postpartum depression. I'm not going to say that to you because I now know you. And I'm like, that's coming on too strong. Let me talk about, hey, it sounds like you've been feeling a little bit down lately. How long has this been going on? That's very different than saying, hey, you have PPD, right? So like we need to know how to have these conversations and connect and see people for their individuality while also keeping in mind that we are products of our culture, our ancestors, and our experiences.
And along with that, as you were pointing out, we need to delve more. When we're having these conversations with our families, delve more. Don't ask just medical questions. Find out what their lifestyle is, the things they like. Exactly. Those things make a difference. What are your practices?
What's the connection?
Right.
Like, I'm not going to talk to you if I don't connect with you. If
Right.
I'm not vibing with you, why am I going to open up?
Right.
Right? Like, I mean, it's just how we would respond to someone else. Like, if I don't feel like you're connecting with me, why am I going to share my deepest, most thoughts?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always say, and I wish others would just take into consideration, when you're about to start with someone, first and foremost, meet them where they are.
Absolutely.
Meet them where they are. Because Madeline and I know someone may not be ready to talk today.
That's right.
But that does not mean they're not going to talk tomorrow.
That's right.
But along with that, if they don't talk today, it's okay.
That's right.
It's okay. And you let them know it's okay.
That's right.
All right?
Yeah.
And then secondly, while you're working with that individual, treat them as you want to be treated. Treat them, even if you feel you're not worthy of being treated well, treat them like you would want your mother, your sister, your auntie, your friend, your grandmother. Treat them how you would want someone to treat your own family members.
That's right. Absolutely.
Because that right there is going to get you so much more further. And again, stop looking at zip codes. Stop looking at zip codes and where someone resides. Don't make a big issue about what insurance provider they have and say, okay, you know what? I know I'll put you on the side here, because even if that's not your practice, if your actions show that, the families can tell. They can tell.
So thank you, ladies, for sharing your insights, your experience, and your suggestions on this topic of maternal health. I hope that this conversation helps those who are pregnant. We know how important it is to prepare for postpartum and just make sure that you have things lined up and ready. Like, just have the education, right? The knowledge of knowing what to do when things happen.
Do you want to do a takeaway as our final? We want to each do a little takeaway.
Yeah. Can I?
Yeah.
You know what I was wondering? Do people know, do we need to define what like some of the words that we're saying? That was the only thing I was thinking when we were talking.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay.
So really quickly, what I would like to point out is, I just lost my train of thought. Oh my goodness. No. I want to point out that here it is, we're talking about postpartum and, prenatal depression, but there's also a lot of our families who suffer from bipolarism, they're depressed, manic depressive, and other mental issues, okay? I would like to just say really quickly, if any of our moms happen to see this, please do not remove yourself off of medication on your own.
Yeah.
See a doctor, allow that doctor to either change your medication, lower your dosage, but do not remove yourself off that medication, because it can also escalate, your mental health into something that's even worse. And we've seen that in situations as well. And I know that moms are not doing it to harm themselves or their babies. They're actually doing it because they're concerned that the medication will affect their babies. But if you speak to your doctor can definitely make sure either they'll let you know the medication is good, and it's okay. It will not harm your baby, or they can switch your medication or lower your dosage. So please do not automatically remove yourself off of medication.
What I would like to say is if you are pregnant and or in postpartum period and you're experiencing any symptoms that you may feel like this is not okay and you know that something is off, please speak to someone. It doesn't have to be a therapist, but speaking to one person that you can identify that as your safe person to help you get the help that you need. And sometimes it's just speaking to someone or journaling or like doing different mindfulness. Like there's so many things that you can do.
I mean, I think for me, the takeaway here is that, a lot of times people tell you trust your gut, but I feel like when you are in the fog, right, you don't even know what is true and what's not true, right? And I think we just have to normalize that you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be, I know everything. So I would just say, if, lean into this resource that we have, right? Like we are here to be your support. I know we were talking about a lot of the connections and being there for each other. So I do think if you just want to talk about what you're feeling, right? Know that there is an option and there's support here, because I do think a lot of times we say, trust your gut, but when you're in the fog, you just don't know. So I just encourage everyone to, even though it's hard as hell, right, to take the first step. But when you take that first step and you take the next step, it gets better when you have somebody else to like just help you with the load. And I think all of us are here sharing that we've been there, right? Whether it's postpartum, prenatal, or just life is lifing, and life is hard. And just know that most of the people that you have encountered have gone through some struggles, some mental health issues. And I just encourage people to take the first step to talk to someone. I know it really helped me.
Yes.
And as I'm choking, I'll say, I have to say, my takeaway is come to us, come to BRIC, come to Healthy Beginnings. So BRIC is a pre-cradle to and through career approach that really makes sure that we are supporting people from the earliest period possible. So before the birthing person, the mom is even pregnant, right? We want you in, we want you healthy, we want you wrapped around with love, support, resources, tools, knowledge, and we will stay with you. Joanna will be with you in the delivery room. We'll be there when your baby turns 2. We'll be there when your kid starts kindergarten. We will be there when your kid is walking across graduation, and then when they're trying to find a career to go to, we'll be there for that too. So come to us at any point, but if you are pregnant, if you're thinking about getting pregnant, it's a great time to link up with the Healthy Beginnings program. It's a full suite of services. We will get you hooked up with a good provider, a healthcare provider, an early childhood environment so your kid can go to a great daycare, doctor's appointments, like anything you need. We're there to support you and navigate you through all of this soup that is life. It's super confusing. Nichelle and I joke all the time. I need a community health worker. Somebody needs to help me make appointments. Please help. That is my please help Jasmine. But Jasmine can help you, because I can't do it for myself, but I can do it for other people. So right? And like this helps, right? So plugging to Madeline runs a beautiful support group twice a week, trying to really grow that. This is critical and important for all of us. Talking is so important. And recognizing, seeing a provider is so important. And if you need to be on medication, like linking up with yours, it's okay to be on medication. People take medication for their diabetes, right? Your mental health condition is also a chronic condition. It is not a moral failing. It's not a problem to have mental health conditions. It's part of life. It's your brain chemistry. We're not in control of this stuff. So come see us. We'll support you. And we love you.